morning, readers. Welcome back to my channel, Books, Ink, and Paper. I am a very congested Lori today, and I probably look a little rough. I still feel a little rough, but this video and some others were supposed to be filmed on Saturday, but I came back from my trip to the nation's capital with a pretty awful cold. You might remember I got sick in May, right as summer was coming into bloom, and now I've gotten sick again in September, right as fall is coming into bloom. So there may be a correlation there, but nevertheless, I can't keep from filming videos for much longer, and I don't know that I will be completely decongested anytime soon. So let's give this a shot today. And today I'd like to talk about the Netgalley list, my Netgalley list in particular, and where I am with it and what my commitment is to it in the next few months, because it bothers me. I don't know why I request so many Netgalley books and then don't read them. I don't know if it's because they come out of my purview, but I don't think that's it, because they're on my Kindle. So I see them whenever I open up all of my titles. I'm not sure if it's because I don't think about them as much as I think about the next shiny penny that comes in front of my face to read. I don't know. But anyway, they're sitting there and I feel bad about it. And Netgalley is kind of cracking down and saying, look, if you don't start reading some of these and reviewing them, then we're not going to keep giving you your requested titles. And that's fair enough. It really is. So I decided to do a video today on what's on my Netgalley list, what I've requested, and when I plan to take a look at that tentatively. Some of them are easier than others. Now, if you don't know, netgalley.com is a place where you can go and sign up to be a reviewer and to receive advanced readers' copies of books that authors are shopping out to see if they can get some buzz about their book before it's published. Netgalley will deliver them to your Kindle in ebook form, and I think they will actually send a few hard copies too, although I've never received a hard copy ARC from Netgalley. I have from other sources, but not from Netgalley. Then you can read them at your leisure, but they do tell you when the book comes out, and so probably the goal is that you would read it before the book comes out or shortly after, and give a review, give feedback and give a review, and the more you do, the more you sort of are considered for more popular books, let's say, or you're considered more for maybe more quickly than you would have otherwise. So I've watched a few other people's videos about Netgalley, and I can feel a little bit more at ease about my Netgalley TBR than other people's Netgalley TBRs, but I totally get how this happens. And I've only been a member, or I've only been a reviewer since 2018, so I've only had about a year to accumulate these, but I know a lot of people have been following Netgalley and requesting books for a lot longer than I have. So I have 12 books that I have requested from Netgalley since I joined. I have read one of those books and given feedback on it, and the others are all still on my TBR awaiting my feedback. I requested 4 in 2018, right after I joined, and I think I joined around the fall. It wasn't no, I guess it had to have been earlier than that, because one of them was published in May 2018. So I must have joined at the beginning of 2018. I've requested 7 this, I've requested 7 that come out in 2019, 8 total so far this year. One of them doesn't come out till January 2020. And I actually have one pending, and I'm not sure that I'm going to receive that one, so I'm not going to talk about it. But if I do, I will certainly mention it in another video. So let's start with the one that I've read and given feedback on. The one that I got that I was so excited about, because I'm such a fan, was The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. And again, this is the magic of Netgalley. I was able to read that book before it was published and review it. I reviewed it at the end of June. I read it the beginning of June, I think, and oh my gosh, I loved it so much, and I was so grateful when I got it. And I will tell you this, you will get an email about certain releases, and they will sometimes be really sought after, and they only do release a number of them at one time. So it's not like everybody who requests one can always get it. So for me, I was actually in the right place at the right time. I saw the email, it popped up, I immediately requested it, boom, got it, and then almost instantly read it. Why that doesn't happen with some of the others, probably because I'm not as familiar with them. I've never read these authors before, but Ruth Ware was definitely a win for me, and made me feel better about myself because I read one and I reviewed it. Now, here are the books that I downloaded in 2018, and the first one, ironically, is the first one that I plan to read, and you'll know why in a minute. So that is The Dead House by Billy O'Callaghan. It was published in May of 2018, so I requested it sometime at the beginning of the year. It is a ghosty paranormal story. It's about a woman who decides to go on a little trip to Ireland, and she purchases this historic cottage while there, or house while there, and then she restores it, fixes it up, and in celebration of the completion of that restoration, she invites a few friends over, and they start to play with a Ouija board. Yeah. So why have I not read this book? I guess I just didn't remember what it was about, but I should have. It's called The Dead House. So Billy and I are going to be connected very soon. It is mid-September as I'm filming this. October is coming up, my favorite month for all things horror and paranormal, and I cannot tell you how excited I was to take a look at this list and discover that The Dead House was sitting there and that it is a gem that I want to take a look at right away. So that's priority number one of them. The next one is The Secret Life of Mrs. London by Rebecca Rosenberg. It was published on January 30th, 2018. This follows the wife of Jack London, the novelist. It's a fictional piece of work, but it is a story about his wife and right the brink of war. And I don't want to go into extreme detail, but historical fiction. Let's just say that it's historical fiction. The next one is The Room at Rue Amélie by Kristen Hamill, and it was published in March of 2018. It is also historical fiction. You know, I took a lot of these titles and requested them. It follows a British RAF pilot and a young Jewish teenager. I, again, just feel like this is right up my street, and it was billed as likable for people who love The Nightingale by Kristen Hannah, and I did. This one actually has 4 stars, which is really nice. Yeah, The Myth of Perpetual Summer by Susan Crandall is the next book that I downloaded. This was published in June of 2018. One of the reasons it appealed to me was because it's a family saga, which I love. It's set in Mississippi, and it just follows this family through some tumultuous, difficult times, and I thought it would be good. That one, as I look at the list, is pushing up toward the top. I wish I would have thought of it and seen it for my summer reading list, but I didn't. So let's just see what happens and how quickly I get to that. The next is Daughter of Malachi by Alan Brennert. This is the second in his Daughters of Malachi series, and I have not read the first, so I didn't realize when I requested it that it was number 2, but it follows Ruth, who apparently in the first book was quarantined to a leper colony, but in the second book she is sent to Honolulu to a school for girls and then later adopted by a Japanese couple, I think. So it's a story of her and I guess her coming of age, and yeah, I think it sounds very interesting, and it's gotten some pretty great feedback on Goodreads. This Alan Brennert sequel came out in February of 2019. So that was the first book that I requested and received this year. The Girls at 17 Swan Street by Yara Zaghib, I think it's Zaghib, is a novel that is quite emotionally difficult. So I have to be in a good space for that. It follows a dancer who moves from Paris to Missouri because she falls in love. And when she comes to the United States, it's a pretty big adjustment for her, and she develops a lot of challenges in her healthy habits, including pressure to become thinner. She diets and becomes anorexic, or maybe a combination of anorexia and bulimia. Anyway, she goes down to an alarming weight, and she is then admitted to a treatment facility where she meets some other women, and the treatment facility is 17 Swan Street. So I love the premise of this. I've heard really lovely things about this book, and it is closer to the top of my list to read. Even though it sounds really difficult and really painful, sometimes that for me is a really compelling read, and it is rewarding in its pain and difficulty. And The Girls of 17 Swan Street came out in February of 2019. The next one I requested, and I almost got to, I put it on my TBR a couple of months ago, and it did not make the cut. The final cut, I guess, but it's City of Flickering Light by Juliette Fay, and it came out in April of 2019. This was billed as perfect for fans of La La Land, and that is one of my favorite musicals in a long, long time, modern day musicals. It follows dancers in the 1920s in traditional burlesque, as well as in more I guess mainstream dancing opportunities and shows and different things. And it just follows the lives of some women who are dancers and who are coming into their own in their life and in their work during that period of time. And I really do love that era, and I love books about women and friendships. And Juliette Fay is really good at historical fiction. The Long Call by Anne Cleeves I requested a few months ago, and that came out in September. So we're getting closer to current releases. And Anne Cleeves had not written a new series in over 20 years, so this was very anticipated. I have not read, that I know of, any of Anne Cleeves' other novels. This one follows a character named Matthew who goes back home for his father's funeral, and while he's there, he's a detective, and while he's there, there's a body found in the community where he grew up, and so he endeavors to try to solve this murder mystery as he just happens to be there and I think he discovers the body. Anne Cleeves has a great following. This one gets great feedback on Goodreads as well. So yeah, I think that one is also going to rise to the top of the list. The Sisters of Summit Avenue is another book that I requested by Lynn Cullen, and it was published in September. So again, I have some bragging rights if I can get this read and reviewed soon. This one is set in the Midwest. It's a story of two sisters, and there's a betrayal, and there's a couple of family secrets, I think, that are dark. And it's set, I would say, based on what I'm reading, I'm not sure that it says, but I think it's set in the 50s or 60s, so it's not a contemporary. This one gets great feedback on Goodreads as well. I mean, it's 3.60, I think, so it's good. None of these have gotten anything less than 3.5 stars, so that's one thing I think that Netgalley really does promote books that they anticipate will do well. And again, this one is fairly new, so she's not getting as much of a review audience yet because it's just coming out. But I like it. It sounds really interesting to me, and I like stories about sisters and betrayal and secrets and all those kinds of things as well. And the last one that I requested does not come out until January of 2020. but it might be at the top of my list in desire to read, and that is The Better Liar by Tannen Jones. The cover was definitely speaking to me, but it is a psychological thriller, and it was billed as something that fans of Gillian Flynn and someone else that writes thrillers would like. This one is the story of two sisters, one of which claims her sister's inheritance by saying that her sister has died, and she has not. So that will be delicious. I cannot wait to pick this up. And again, it's available to me anytime I want, so I can start whenever I'm ready. It has 67 ratings, numbered ratings, and 42 reviews on Goodreads, and it's over 4 stars already, about 4.10. So I think it's gotten some good buzz for sure. So here's my goal. I have prioritized the first 4 that I would like to read, and I think I can do that before the end of the year. 1 to 4. So number 1, you may have already anticipated, is The Dead House by Billy O'Callaghan. I think that's a perfect October read. I may even get to it before the end of the month if I reach some of my other September reading goals. September's been a slow reading month for me. So yeah, I'm a little sad about my progress so far this month, but it happens. Number 2 in priority is The Better Liar by Tannen Jones. You probably aren't surprised by that either, so I'm going to mark that as number 2 on my list. I use this little notepad to write notes now for my BookTube channel, and then I toss them away, but I'm going to put these in my bullet journal, so I'll be able to keep track of that. Number 3 is The Long Call by Anne Cleeves, a murder mystery. Again, might be a great October read or November read, but I think about I think it's set in Ireland. I think about the cold winter in Ireland. That might be fun. And number 4, maybe less fun, but definitely my next in priority is The Girls at 17 Swan Street. Yeah, I think it may be painful, but that's not gonna, shy me away from reading it. And it's a very interesting plot, I think, to really just kind of take a look at. So that's my next 4 reads before the end of the year, or the first part of 2020. That will get me to a 5 books reviewed altogether, which will make me feel good. I will finish the one that's coming out in January 2020 pretty quickly before it comes out. And then I will do separate review videos on each of these for you, maybe a little synopsis in the month in which I read it, but a separate review video, which I like to do for those books that I read on Netgalley. There was recently a challenge for people to get all of their Netgalley books read or read more of them in, I think it was August, July, August timeframe. Netgalley kind of did a readathon and encouraged readers to do that. I had already pre-chosen my reads for those months, and they were pretty hefty for me, and so I just could not really see myself adding that readathon to my list of things to do, but I appreciate that they did that. But what I'm going to do is just kind of create my own goals around this, and I may, depending on how things go, if I'm able to take some time off in December, which is I'm not sure about, I might do a Netgalley readathon for a week and see how many I can finish in a week. So that's something I'm going to consider when I make my plans for for the last quarter of the month, which I'm doing now. I am not traveling for a month, but when I do travel again in October, I'm going pretty far afield, a pretty long flight. And so that means lots of reading, and ebook reading is really my preferred method when I'm on a plane. So I may exceed my 4 plans to read these 4 books before the end of the year. We'll see. But again, I probably, I have a great September TBR, and I've been reading through it, and I've been, again, a little slower than I'd like, but the other day, you know, there was a shiny object in the bookstore, and while I didn't buy that particular book, I found it on Overdrive and started reading it last night, and it is not on any list of mine. And I mean, I think I've said that I wanted to read it maybe, but it hasn't been on my plan for this month or for my summer reads. So I'm really focusing on trying to finish up my summer reads and my September TBR before the end of the month. We shall see soon how I did. Thanks for joining me today and putting up with my cold and my crazy scratchy voice, which is so much better. You have no idea. When I called my daughter Saturday, I had to reschedule her birthday party, and she said, "Oh my God, Mama, I thought you were a man." It was pretty bad. So it's much better, but I thank you for being patient and putting up with it. More videos to come this week, and hopefully next I'll get back in the swing of recording and publishing. Please comment and let me know if you've read any of these books, because you certainly could have. They've been out for a while. Maybe if you tell me a fifth one that I should add to the priority list, I will take your recommendation and put it on. That'd be good. Let's do that. You tell me which one you really would like to read. I'll tally up the votes and of the ones that I'm not listed, and I'll tally up the votes, and then I'll add that to number 5.
Oh, perfect.
Thanks again. I hope you'll like this video. If you appreciate it, subscribe by clicking the little bell up at the top of the webpage to get notifications of when a new video is out. Share it with your friends if you wouldn't mind. And as always, I hope you have a very happy, healthy reading day. Bye.